Candles burn in winter chill. Whispers wander through the still. Monsters awake from sleep so deep. Darkness cradles secrets we keep. Bells that jingle, ghosts that chime. Lurking shadows out of rhyme. Underneath the festive cheer lies the monster's midnight sneer. Krampus claws and icy paws, hushed and hidden ancient laws. Fear and wonder interlace in the cold embrace of this place. Fiendish laughter in the snow echoes where the cold winds blow. Masked beneath the Yuletide glee wakes the ghost of Christmas free. Krampus claws and icy paws, hushed and hidden ancient laws. Fear and wonder interlace in the cold embrace of this place.
Hey there, true believers. Thanks for joining us for a special episode of Monstrous the Podcast. We're doing a special Christmas Eve episode, so Merry Christmas to everybody. And I've got Mr. Mark Bannon and Miss Pamela Earnest, and we're going to talk to you tonight about some of the darker sides of Christmas. So we're going to be talking about Krampus, Perchta, the Perchtens, and some other fun stuff. So sit back, get cozy, get a fire going, and get ready to listen to some fun stuff. Mark, how are you doing, sir?
I am doing well, sir. How about yourself?
Doing great. Miss Pam, how are you?
Doing great. I got my Christmas tree up finally. It's just a few days before Christmas, so I thought I better do it.
Now you're going to have to leave it up for quite a while.
I know. I'll leave it up at least mid-January, probably.
We have an evil cat. If I put one up, it'll be down in about 30 seconds.
All right, so a little bit of an introduction. So we'll let the ladies go first. So Miss Pam, a little bit of an introduction, please.
I'm Pam Earnest. I live in Southeast Kansas. Been in the paranormal, especially into podcasting, the last 3 years, I think. I've been in the paranormal field since the late 80s, early 90s, though. So, we did a couple of shows we've done on Krampus before with some other podcasts. So this will be a fun one because there's a lot of really fascinating folk tales and info out there on it. So looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So Mark, a little bit of an intro, please.
All right. I'm Mark Bannon. I live here in Southeast Kansas, in the same town as Pam. I started out exploring abandoned buildings and such, and got into ghost hunting. Of late, I am the co-host of What If Tomorrow and On the Fringe, and occasionally pop in on other podcasts. I wouldn't call myself an expert on anything. But I love the discussion. I love the exploring of all these topics, and I've got quite a bit of stuff on Krampus and the Yule lads and stuff we can talk about. So
Nice.
It could be a fun night.
Fantastic. So just want to let you guys know we had a blast when we were up there for the Border Town Paranormal Conference. So that was fantastic. I don't think I've ever had that much fun at a conference. So
That's great.
we're
Glad to
looking
hear.
we're looking forward to the one in 2025. So we're already geared up and ready to come up there for that one.
Awesome.
So. And we were going to have Jess on here with us, but apparently time, wasn't working in her favor. Plus, she's dealing with laryngitis right now. So
it's starting to clear up, but she's got a lot of family that came in today. So
yeah.
Well, she won't have a voice by the end of the day anyway.
No, she won't.
So we'll pick on her on the next go round or whatever.
Absolutely.
So let's get this party started. So Mark, let's talk about Krampus a little bit.
Well, I mean, Krampus is kind of a lot of these tales come from the northern hemisphere, like you said, Iceland, and I just went blank.
It's okay. I do it all the time.
Well, I mean, it's kind of my thing. Alpine regions.
Mhm.
Yeah, Austria, Italy. Yeah.
Austria, Italy.
Yeah.
But Krampus, he's kind of a fun subject. I mean, you've seen the costumes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There, some folklorists believe he may have had his pre-Christian roots. He may be the child of hell, the not Hell, but Hel of Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting. He's supposed to accompany Saint Nick on December 5th, and while Saint Nick rewards the good children, he punishes the bad. So
It's a running theme too.
His scary demeanor and whatnot. I mean, what better way to keep you've got the stick and the carrot. I mean,
exactly.
That's how you get things done with any group of people, especially children. A stick and a carrot.
Exactly. So
Krampus is the stick.
Yeah, so we know that St. Nicholas is going to bring the gifts and the stockings, stuffings, and all of that other stuff. So what does Krampus do in order to punish people or kids who aren't behaving?
Well, there's a whole mixed bag there. Let me check my notes here because I'm nothing without my notes.
Nobody
While you're looking that up, Mark, I'll jump in too.
Go ahead, Pam.
That what's interesting about him is in what I was reading, he is a literal demon, which you don't see that spoken of the other characters and figures that we're going to talk about later. And that he often is portrayed with one human foot and one cloven hoof, which is pretty wild.
Long tongue.
Yeah, he's got the long tongue that lolls halfway down his chest, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why he's depicted with that one human foot and cloven foot and hoof.
He is supposed to be the child of hell, so
that has to be the reason.
And
I've got a little bit of inside information on that.
Do you? Ooh, let us know. Do tell.
Okay, so Krampus is actually a derivative from a character or a series of characters that we're going to talk about here in a little bit called the Perchta. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at the Perchtens costumes and you look at Krampus, they look identical, except for the long tongue and the human foot. Mm-hmm. So what happened was that the church, being the Catholic Church at the time, decided to take the Perchta and the Krampus and make it more of a demonic being. And by doing that, one of the things that has to happen is in the mythology or lore that surrounds demons are able to take on human shape, but they always have something odd about them.
There you go. That makes sense.
So that's why that one human foot. And of course, the long tongue is the serpent's tongue, or shows something demonic about it, or something very oh, shall we say, not politically correct, or not, not.
Right.
It's a little bit more of an adult theme
Skeevy.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. He's not a very nice guy for very many reasons.
Well, and
But also, it's kind of a duplicity of a character because he punishes people who are bad, but he also keeps away evil, just like the Perchten do. So anyway, go ahead. I just had an insight on that one.
well, and see, the whole long tongue thing just is freaky, especially when you look into the research, and he's supposed to chase children with either a stick or a chain and kidnap them and take them to hell.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But there's also pictures of him where he's trying to seduce women as well.
Yes,
which is really weird.
Well, that's Pan-like.
Exactly.
It is,
They've
yeah.
got the horns.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And what's funny about Krampus is the character that is actually responsible for the origination of Christmas cards. Christmas cards start out with Krampus, and of course they had the depiction of him punishing children, which was kind of a little bit grotesque in some senses, and then got a little bit more sexual, where there was him, trying to seduce women, like Pam was talking about. But those cards nowadays are, collector's items.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you won't see
But
It's
those.
big business now.
yeah. But now nobody thinks, that you're going to get a Christmas card with something like Krampus on it. You're going to get snowy scenes and, polar bears and Coke bottles and stuff like that.
I know. I've seen some of that bad 80s studio photography of families, and maybe it's not so far off.
Exactly. Maybe Krampus should make a comeback.
No kidding. Well, I know that he frequently is seen carrying like chains and bells and branches and things like that, and that he used the branches to whip the bad kids. But and I may be getting him confused with some others. Was it a focus on birch branches, or is
Yes.
that with another one?
Yes.
Do we know why? Did you run across the reasoning on that? Why it was birch?
They're very flexible, and they hurt.
Just because they hurt.
Yeah, and because
Makes sense.
birch trees are fairly prevalent in the alpine areas.
That okay.
So-
There you go. That makes
You
sense.
also see him with baskets or sacks.
That's true. Now, why does he have the basket and the sack?
Well, it's to kidnap the kids with.
Exactly.
To cram
You-
the kids into.
yeah, you got to carry those kids off somewhere. So what's funny is Santa Claus comes in with a bag full of stuff, leaves with an empty bag. Krampus shows up with an empty bag, picks up kids, and leaves with a full bag.
What happened to little brother?
You know,
Yeah.
everything. There's so much that when you look at the mythology, it all seems to kind of swirl together to some effect. Because what that makes me think of is Labyrinth. With you've got the Goblin King, swooping up the kids and turning them into goblins to kind of be his minion, basically. And I wonder if that's what they do with the kids, with
Well-
the bad kids. Do they keep them and
And think
what
about it.
what
We're
happens
all
to 'em?
used.
Do they eat them? I know that's one of the things they say that they eat them.
Mm-hmm.
We're all used to the watered down fairy tales here in the United States.
True.
But you start looking at the original stories, and they're all pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
They're all pretty bad. I mean,
Grimm's fairy tales, yeah, they're not good. I mean, they really clean them up.
it's
I
slaughter.
don't know a better word. Yeah, it
Slaughter.
is.
Yeah.
Slaughter.
Absolutely. The originals are
Well, a lot of
very
them were-
different from today's.
A lot of them were constructed as warnings for children. They're kind of
Mhm.
this parable type story that you behave, you do what your parents tell you to do. You don't wander off in the woods. Don't eat houses made out of cookies and things like that. Don't hang around with witches. Don't jump in ovens. Things like that.
And wouldn't the folklore? A lot of that folklore was probably never meant to be believed. It was meant to be cautionary tales for the children. Don't mess up, or Krampus is going to come get you and haul you off to his mom.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
But what's funny about folklore is there's a lot of truth that hides behind that folklore. I mean, if you look at the story of Little Red Riding Hood, for instance, where you talk about the big bad wolf, wolf attacks back in those times on children especially were very prevalent. There
Oh,
were a
yeah.
lot of children who were killed by wolves. So there might have been a hint of truth with these stories about, when we talk about Perchta or we talk about Baba Yaga or other characters like that, where you have this, and we'll get into this, like I said, much later in another episode, where we talk about these ogres and these witches. And then these characters like Perchta, who not Perchta, Krampus, who kind of fill the gap in a story and fill a duality of roles where they are the ones who run off with the kids and, either eat them or alter them or change them. And, you were talking about that Krampus is the child or son of Hel, Hel. That falls back into where we were going to talk about Perchta or Frau Perchta and the Perchtens, which also transfers over into Grayla and the Yule Lads. So that all kind of goes together. So anyway, before we get all just carried away and make a complete mess out of this, because I'm really good at that, talking in circles. So does anybody have any information on Grayla and the Yule Lads?
I
do, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, whoever wants to start.
Start, Mark.
All right. Well, the Icelandic Yule Lads are supposed to be the children of Gryla. And let me scroll down here to this page. Well, I cannot pronounce any of these words because
I went with the English pronunciations because there's no way.
That's what I would do as well.
Oh my gosh. I did. The one thing I did learn how to say was her husband's name, and that's Lepalole. Gryla and Lepalole, and their Yule cat.
Well, Yule
cat, everybody needs a Yule cat. So Gryla lives in the wilderness of Iceland. She's been around for a long time, medieval times. She's a crone, so of course her children are not.
I would be an ogress too if I had 13.
If I had 13 children, yeah,
and a lazy husband, heck yeah.
I mean, there you go. But she wanders around and she basically asks for money for food or whatever. She's kind of a beggaress. I guess if, like Pam said, if you had 13 children, you would probably be looking for whatever support you could. She's generally not a nice woman. She's a troll.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we can get all into the troll mythology if you want, but
that'd be a fun show. Just trolls in general.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But she's also depicted as wandering around farms in the summer, so she's a year-round character.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, she's associated with Christmas because of her 13 children.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the 13 children, they're kind of wacky.
Did you see some of that? So, I would encourage anyone to go out and Google images of the Yule Lads. There's some crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean they're I found some pretty whacked out stuff, but
I did too.
You want to go through the Yule Lads?
Go ahead.
We can
do that.
We've got Sheepcoat Clod, who tries to drink milk straight from the sheep. So he's a bit strange. And that also has some weird sexual overtones there that we don't want to talk about.
All that reminds me of is one of the episodes of Resident Alien where he was trying to drink milk directly from the cow.
Oh my God. Yes, that's hilarious. I forgot about that episode.
So
Oh my
he's
goodness.
kind of a creepy guy.
And he's like stiff-legged too. So,
Yeah.
Pardon me?
and the dude's stiff-legged.
You're cutting out.
Oh, am I?
Or I'm cutting out.
He's
There is,
stiff-legged.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Gully Gawk. He steals the foam from the buckets of cow milk.
That's
So-
just rude.
Yeah, I mean, why would you do that?
I don't
Why
know.
just the foam? Why just the foam? I don't understand. Stubby, he's short and steals food from frying pans. So,
I don't steal food from frying pans, but I identify with the study.
well, I actually this one is the least weird of them as far as I can tell, because I have been known to snatch stuff out of the frying pan with a fork.
Yes, especially
So,
while
I
I'm
mean,
cooking.
I can identify with that.
Yeah.
I like
He's probably
how it says,
stubby, or more likely stumpy, because he tried to grab something and maybe lost a hand. I don't know. Just brought back a bloody stump.
He must have been doing that while my mom was cooking.
Oh yeah, Mom might have
Spoon
whacked his
licker.
hand.
I mean, and these are all things that you might see a bad child do.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. Spoon licker. He licks the spoons. How many kids have you seen licking the spoon in the kitchen during the cooking process?
Mm-hmm.
I just had an idea. Maybe that's where Krampus got the long tongue. Is he was originally a spoon licker and he got his tongue caught in the beaters.
Well, I mean,
Maybe
in
not,
today's
but
society,
funny.
that could be funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pot scraper, aka pot licker. He steals unwashed pots and pans and licks them clean. While that's a bit gross, it makes running them through the washer a lot easier.
I was going to say that seems a little bit more helpful
might be
than the guy
that
who's
might be
stealing
a
the foam
service.
off the milk. Yeah.
That might be a service. So, I mean, everybody's had a dog here at one time or another. And, I don't know how many times I've set a cooking pot down for the dog to clean up and then washed it later. It was a whole lot easier once all the food was gone.
Oh my
I did
gosh.
that. I did that earlier today.
I mean, maybe it's just a guy thing, but I mean,
That's funny.
so
I'm sure the dog. No wonder the dogs like you guys so much.
Exactly.
They're
I
like,
mean-
"Hey, buddy."
just change their name to Hoover.
Oh, that's fun.
Bowl licker. He steals bowls of food from under the bed. And why are the bowls of food under the bed?
I don't know, because in that time period, that's not a really good idea.
I think that's where they did put the bowls on the floors for the animals to clean out. And he hid under the bed, and he would grab the bowl from the
No,
the
I
dog.
know both of my
cat.
kids were bad about putting cereal bowls under the edge of the bed because they were too lazy to take them to the kitchen. So maybe that's why. Anyway, yeah, they put the bowls under the bed, and bowl licker would clean them.
Let me just say this. During that period of time, that would have been a very dangerous venture because that's the era when they used chamber pots. So you could get a hold of the wrong bowl.
Oh,
Yikes.
that is bad. That brings new horror to that whole.
Dang.
Thank you for that, Robert.
You're welcome, Mark.
I'm traumatized. I'm gonna need to leave. Door slammer stomps around, slams doors, keeping everyone awake. Well, this also sounds like the behavior of my children. So yeah, I can see where
Causing a ruckus wherever he goes.
Causing a ruckus.
Yeah,
is he.
that'd be my kids too.
They would either punish bad children or like kill them. So, but their behavior seems to be that of bad children. Really,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at these, skyr gobbler eats up all the Icelandic yogurt or skyr. Well, he's more than welcome to my yogurt because I don't eat yogurt very often.
Yes, and from
When
what I
yogurt-
hear,
as George Carlin once said, when yogurt goes bad, how can you tell?
exactly.
Sausage swiper who loves stolen sausages. Oh, I mean, also the behavior of bad children. They'd hang the sausages over the rafters, to help cure it and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So again, all these behaviors seem to be the behaviors of bad children.
Mm-hmm.
Window peeper likes to creep outside windows and sometimes steals the stuff he sees inside. Okay, so now we're just going straight on to delinquency.
Yes.
So,
The closer you get to Christmas, the
door sniffer is kind of gross. Door sniffer, he's a huge nose and an insatiable appetite for stolen baked goods.
we were talking about the Yule lads yesterday when we were walking back. Mark, do you remember that? At least it wasn't the chair sniffer.
Yes, at least it wasn't the chair sniffer because, of course.
I'd rather see a doorway sniffer than a chair sniffer.
Door sniffer is much better than a chair sniffer.
Yes.
Who snatches up any meat left out, especially smoked ham or smoked lamb. This sounds more like the family dog.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a very large nose, which is interesting.
No, that's very dog-like, yes.
Yeah.
And candle beggar. He steals candles, which used to be sought after items in Iceland. Yes. Candles used to actually be a very valuable commodity. I mean, that's how you provided light in your home. You read by it, you cooked by it. So, again, very bad behavior, something you would expect a bad child to be doing.
Yeah.
So, Gryla's children apparently are not very well mannered.
They were little jerks.
I think she should have spent less time out begging and more time turning them over her knee.
One of the articles that I saw called them her maladjusted sons. That's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maladjusted seems
pretty
about
tame.
right.
Yeah.
Now, in a slightly different version of the story, the children aren't actually hers. She had stolen them one at a time, and that was part of their punishment.
Oh,
So that's why they had those names, is because they had actually done those things. They were known for that. And they existed almost as spirits rather than as actual children. They were forever children at that point. This is where you get into the fae and the trolls and things like that, where they exist perpetually as these naughty children or whatever. They take on this persona and then would come in around Christmas time or Yule time, and that, if this was a household that wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing, they would come in and they would torment that household, kind of like, in Halloween, trick or treat. If you didn't put out things for Grayla or, honor the way that you were supposed to honor the spirits, the gods and everything, well, then they would start to pull tricks on you by stealing things, stealing the foam off the milk, stealing your pots and pans, taking your candles, things like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that I did run across something that was talking about the fact the big thing when it came to the pots and pans was iron. You can't get it in Iceland. You can't, that's something that has to be imported. So the pot or the pan in the family, that's like their one thing that they have that's worth anything. And so for it to be taken or, something to have happened to it, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was as valuable as gold for these people because they needed it for survival.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what's kind of funny about that, whenever you talk about iron, especially worked iron is supposed to be a deterrent against the fae and trolls and things like that. So it's kind of funny that these things would come in and they would steal iron or, lick on the iron or whatever.
Yeah.
So
it kind of tells you a little bit about their persona, what they're made of. They must not be fae if they can do that. Or
well, and that's
affected, maybe. I don't
While
know.
they didn't realize it at the time, the iron in those cook pots were essential. That was their essential source of iron as a vitamin, because
Mhm.
that got into the food, and that's, as your pots and pans wear, that iron gets into your diet, and it's
Yeah,
necessary
it's a
for
good point.
survival. And Iceland has um, really kind of a poor environment for crops and whatnot. So
Yes, that's true. Iceland, Greenland, those areas up there, Scandinavia, most of those areas aren't really well suited for crops until you get into the lower Germanic areas.
Yeah,
yeah,
I saw where they even had to like keep their sheep underground during the winter months because it was
Mhm.
so cold and the weather was so terrible.
That is
That's
true.
would be hard to do.
yeah. Well, there are a lot of caves in Iceland, though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, probably a lot of these large caves were probably used uh, to provide shelter for their herds.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I'm sure they stored a lot of food in those caves as well, too,
Mhm.
through the wintertime. And that leads us over into Perchta and the Perchtens, which is actually very closely related to Grayla and the Yule Lads. So Perchta is also kind of synonymous with a goddess of that period of time. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she is very similar in the essence of Perchta as the old crone. She can also appear as a young, beautiful woman, as Frau Perchta. Um,
Mhm.
but during the wintertime,
Frega.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But during the wintertime, and especially around Yule and those periods of time, it was common for her to take on the persona very similar to Santa Claus and Krampus at the same time. She would come in and she would leave a silver coin for the child who was doing his or her things, that they were supposed to do on a daily basis. And if they didn't, and they were bad children, their punishment was much, much worse. They were actually gutted. The intestines were removed and they were filled back in with straw and pebbles,
Yep.
which is pretty horrific.
Yeah, yeah. Some of these our ancestors come up with some really dark crap.
They did. They did. I saw there were some other legends on her that equated her with like the legend of the Wild Hunt too, where she flies through the night sky with her army of lost souls, kind of thing. Um,
And some of these stories remind me of the child, the maid, the mother, and the crone.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so
And they kind of even fall back into Greek mythology where you think of the three witches who are sharing the one eye,
yeah,
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 that's true. Didn't think of that. I thought it was interesting too because as Christianity became more prevalent, it kind of was incorporated in to take the power away
Hmm.
from the pagan portion of the folklore, and that happened with her as well because they started to say yes, she was in the Wild Hunt, but the army of servants that went with her, they were the souls of unbaptized children, is
Mm-hmm.
how she came up with her army. And and they would say legend had it, if you hear the wind and the thunder roaring and rumbling through the mountains on the Birkdale nights, you are really hearing the sounds of Perkta leading the Wild Hunt.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Now, the Perchtens are pretty cool. They're her children in a way. And they're, like a lot like Krampus. They're these big fur covered things with these demonic looking horns and these horrible faces. But what's funny about them is that they're not only there so much to punish bad children, they're there to protect the area from evil spirits.
Yep.
So there's Perchten who are beautiful and Perchten who are horrible looking. So that kind of falls off into the Fae and the trolls as well, because we have a feeling that, that we always have this picture of the Fae being these gossamer, beautiful, pale colored Lord of the Rings type, beings. And then, of course, the goblins are the evil counterpart to that. So, these kind of fit into both of those simultaneously.
Good point.
Yep. Yeah, I really hadn't got into that, but that is pretty interesting stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And her big thing too was like, wasn't it the last 3 Thursdays before Christmas, you had to make sure that your house was clean and your spinning was done. And that, if that was not, all your housework wasn't done, that's when she would gut you.
Yes.
And,
yes.
oh, that's wild.
Yes. You had to make sure that you were eating the right foods, that you were observing the right traditions, that everything was clean and organized. And yeah, it's it's kind of funny when you think about it now, but back then, if you think about it, if
That's a real fear.
Yeah, absolutely. If things weren't clean, what happened? Well, you had rats that would come in, mice that would come in, you had disease that would come in. It was a way to get the kids, clean, keep everything clean, keep everything going the way that it's supposed to be going, or else you're going to bring about evil things to come in here.
There's a really good visualization that I found, and it says, as I sweep and mop and clean and dust, I visualize the old crone sneaking into my kitchen late at night, running her withered claw-like fingers over the baseboards and the tops of the cupboards, checking for dust. She creeps through the house like a mad Martha Stewart, crossed with the Grinch who stole Christmas. And if I should fail in my housekeeping, well, let's just say that it really motivates me to keep the house picked up. I really like that.
I'll have to think about that the next time my dryer goes off and it tells me that a load is done and needs to be put away.
I'm bad.
That's
I just
funny.
move out of laundry baskets.
I've been known to do that myself. It's like, where's the shirt that I need? Oh yeah, there it is in the laundry basket.
It's funny. You know what's interesting about her too, and we talk about her in the aspect of the Fae, but she's often depicted with a beaked nose made of iron, which is interesting, and dressed in rags, which is kind of funny because she's such a particular, if your house isn't perfect and everything isn't done, I'm going to get you. But she comes in dressed in rags and looking like, death warmed over, basically.
She is, but her rags and her ragged clothes are always white, which is what is really weird because it falls into the women in white.
Yeah, it does. That's interesting.
There's, I don't know if any of you ever listened to Sasquatch Chronicles. Mm-hmm. There is one episode that is called, I believe it's called The Two Brothers. And something that wasn't mentioned on there till later, because the brothers didn't want to talk about it because they thought it would make everybody think that they were absolutely crazy. Besides having all of this Sasquatch activity going on their land, there were also orbs that were showing up. And there was a period of time where they were sitting outside and this old crone in white was spotted walking who had really odd looking feet, and they tried to get her attention, and all they heard was this weird laughter, and she disappeared.
Ooh.
Exactly, which kind of falls into Perchta and the Perchten.
It does. And was that in the States?
Yes, it was.
Huh. That makes me think of like Deer Woman, with the hooven feet like a deer.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it's along the lines of that one thing that's wrong with them,
And the orb activity is actually fairly common around Sasquatch hotspots.
It is.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. And it's also tied in with spirits. Well, when we look at the Yule lads, we're looking at spirits that are moving around. So, and that ties in with the Fae. So all this stuff ties back and forth together. And then you look at Perchta, she is also often depicted as having feet like a goose or feet like a chicken or something like that. And then that goes all the way over into
Baba Yaga.
Russian.
Baba
Yes,
Yaga.
exactly.
Yeah.
Baba Yaga. Yep. Which is very closely related into these stories because she also abducts children.
Yep. With her house, doesn't her house have chicken feet?
Yes.
Yep. Her
Yes.
house moves on chicken
Flies.
feet.
Yeah. Wow, that's wild. And I'm of the mind, you've got all these different groups of people all over the world with things that aren't completely alike, but very similar,
Mm-hmm.
seen through their frame of reference
Mm-hmm.
of wherever they're from. And that always makes me think there has to be more truth in that than just folklore for that many different groups of people to have something so similar.
I agree.
See, that brings through several theories. One is basically what we've always talked about. It's all connected.
Mhm.
So a lot of people all over the world have encountered circumstances that were similar enough for them to come up with similar stories. Or this is part of the genetic
where you're
memory of humans because it's becoming more and more accepted in many circles that there was at some point a worldwide empire, if you will, maritime empire before the end of the Ice Age.
Mm-hmm.
So all these stories could spread around and then everybody could, customize them to their own circumstances.
Or we've all
Either
got
one
that
is interesting.
connection into that, the cloud, basically.
Yeah.
The
Just for
human
reference.
cloud, yeah.
Yeah, the unified mind theory.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
some part of us are all connected psychically somehow.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that's a third thing that it's really interesting to it's an interesting mind exercise to think about some of these things. Why is this way in all these very different places? Now in Europe, a lot of these are European or have European. What we've been talking about tonight have European roots. So, that could explain that. But then you see similar things in cultures all over the world. I'm sure if I did a little bit of searching, I could find very similar things in Asian culture or, South American or what have you. In fact, I think I've probably run into them at one time or another, and I just can't remember what they are right now. So that would be an interesting line of research for those of you who are listening and are interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you right now that ADD and the internet is its own separate kind of hell.
Yes.
Because my phone I'm looking up stuff.
Oh, I get rabbit hole city.
Oh yeah. Whenever I started in on this, like I said, that's what actually led me to that we're going to do the other episode later on because I started down the rabbit hole and I couldn't get out of it because I was going from Europe into Asia, and you're right, in Asia through Japan, Korea, China, there's similar characters. When you get into the Native American stuff, there's all kinds.
And I love the historical aspect of all this. And Pam will tell you, we get sidetracked on how history might actually, because so much of history has been rewritten or just forgotten. So we can get going down the history rabbit hole pretty hard. Mel, we're going to be doing some of that later in the new year, so we might have to have you on too.
Oh, absolutely. Drag me down that rabbit hole because I'll go with you.
Awesome.
Yep.
You may regret that was the word.
That brings to mind a lot of Japanese legends. Now that I think about it, are of a similar vein to Gryla and Perchta and whatnot.
Yep. Now you're getting into my field whenever you get into the yokai and all of that stuff because I got buku books up there that I sit and I read about Japanese folklore and all of that.
You and Mark.
No, I
Two
have
peas in a
spent
pod on that.
I'm going to tell you right now, I've spent all day, because I have not had a chance for a long time. I've been reading manga all day.
Oh, good for you.
So, I mean, and I've touched on a lot of that sort of thing just today. So.
Yeah. Well, there's entire mangas, and animes that are built completely around the folklore. I mean, the most popular one I can think of is Inuyasha. That's completely built around the yokai and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, whenever you guys are ready, I'm ready to, go down whatever rabbit hole you've got, especially when you get into history, because I can take us places that you probably didn't want to go in the first place.
I've got a stack of books right now sitting next to my chair that I've not started on yet. Yours is actually the next one in it. It's probably 1.5 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
That's my TBR. It's coming up on a whole bookshelf at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's just what's sitting next to my chair. I've got more stacked.
You can see down my hallway a little bit. That's not all of it. There's another bookshelf.
We've been teasing for several years now. We needed to buy a building and just build us a paranormal library.
Yes.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
And full podcast studio while we were at it.
How cool would that be?
That's a good idea. Yeah, just yesterday I went down to the local bookstore and bought like 6 books on folklore, and I spent like $100 and something on books, and my wife's like, "What about the ones that you bought not that long ago? Have you read those yet?" I'm like, "How dare you?"
I did that just at our Paracon.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I walked around all the tables and bought books.
I haven't got through all my books yet from Paracon.
No, I haven't either. I've still got some.
Yeah.
I've got from our Paracon plus Arkansas Paracon.
I want to go next year for that.
You need to. You too, Robert, if you can swing it. It's the best.
Yep, I'll have to go. I meant to go this year, but we kind of got tied up with a lot of stuff, so we really weren't really able to go. But we had a ball at the one in Kansas, so
I'm so glad.
We're
so glad you came. It was a great time.
We're looking forward to having you down here again.
Absolutely.
Yep. This time you'll have to listen to me speak, because I'm planning on presenting this time. So
absolutely.
And I have great plans on improving yet again our presentation system. I'm picking up a couple of mini PCs to hook up to make it easier for everybody.
Pam won't have a massive anxiety attack
for everybody
to
interface with our big screen TV that we had for presentation.
I love
that. Worked out the best.
Yeah,
it worked out really good.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Every year we're hammering it down a little bit more. So
we're getting a little better every year.
It takes time. It takes time.
It's too bad you're so far away, Robert, because yesterday we got the group together and with some of the people in the paranormal club that we run and took them out in the sandhills where we've had experiences and stuff, and went on a hike out there and told stories, and it was fun. We walked a couple of miles back in there.
Yeah, it was a little over a mile each way down to the side of that bridge.
Yeah, I'd have been all about that.
Oh, so much fun.
Oh,
I hadn't been down there since the maybe late 80s, early 90s.
We enjoyed it so much. My wife was like, "Would you want to move to Kansas?" And I was like,
"Wow."
We have houses right here in town, and I would love to have you as a neighbor, sir.
That would be amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
We could have a whole paranormal community living
right.
We've had several people inquire about moving down into this area because there's so much stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
that would be so great.
The more the merrier. We could just
then we could, work on pitching in and making the library and
that would be cool.
Podcasting station and all kinds of stuff. That'd be neat.
I
know Enzo's talked about moving down, and I know Scotty talked about it. I don't know if he's still interested, but he was looking at land too. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it'd be so much fun.
It would be. It would be.
We're so centrally located.
Robert to get a place down there in for the Noxie Monster. Noxie's not too far away.
Yeah, it's not.
Lots of Bigfoot stuff down there.
It's maybe 20 miles away.
I don't have to do just
Funny, yeah.
Bigfoot. I can do anything.
We've got dogman sightings. We've had pterodactyl sightings, little people sightings,
Frogman.
Yeah, the little frog people. I
Mhm.
forget what they're called. But they're more prevalent up north, but there's been a few seen around
Loveland frogs. Loveland
Yes.
Frogman.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one that was spotted by someone that would have absolutely no idea, never would have heard of the Loveland Frogman. No way that they would have. Older lady had a spot that she fished at since she was a little girl, and she was in her late 70s. And she had thrown it in and, caught something, and it was so heavy she thought she caught a tire or something, down in the creek. And when she pulled on it, this thing came up, and it had the head of a frog, and it, had the thing on it. So it like moved it and looked at her just completely disgustedly, and then just sunk back down. It scared her to death.
She won't go
And
back.
she never went back. She never
wow.
went back. And she had fished in that spot her entire life.
Good thing she didn't go swimming there.
Oh, right. And yeah, we were telling somebody that, and they were like, "Oh my God, I swam in that creek." I'm like, "So did I. We all did." Scary. You never know what's under that water, especially in those muddy creeks.
Well, have we glossed over anything with Krampus and Gryla and any of them, or have we pretty much hit them pretty good?
Yeah, I think we've
got a little out in
talked
the
about all
weeds
of them.
there, didn't we?
Well,
That's okay. We do good in the weeds.
The weeds are where you find all the fun stuff.
That's
That's
true. That is true.
That is true.
I think we did knock out quite a bit. I'm looking to see.
See, I think we've talked about all the Yule lads. We've talked about Gryla a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Perchta, which is actually really interesting to me. I'm going to have to look more into that.
I know a fun one we haven't talked about yet.
Go for it, Pam.
Mari Lloyd.
Go for it.
Mari Lloyd is actually a Welsh entity. And the first written record of Mari Lloyd was in J. Evans's book, and it was from 1800s, called A Tour Through the Part of North Wales. And it's really interesting because this isn't a person or a troll. This is like a skeletal horse, basically. And almost like a zombie horse for Christmas kind of thing. It's really, really crazy. But it came as an outgrowth of like wassailing tradition in Wales, where they would go and sing and carol and things like that. But they kind of mixed it up with trick-or-treating. So it's like you come and you have to sing, or these groups move from home to home, and they, the people of the home will open the door, and if they sing, they'll offer them a drink or whatever, offer them inside. But in the Mari Lloyd tradition, one member of the group hoists up this horse's skull on a pole, and it's draped with a hood, and it leads the wassailers about. And so they would sing, and the home dwellers would respond with a song. And this would go back and forth until the Mari Lloyd bearers would get their drink, and or they would move on. But this continued on for a really long time. And it would be usually on 12th night, which is up till January 6th, So I always thought it was interesting. And it translated to Gray Mare, or Gray Mary is what some thought it may have translated into as well. But it was pretty much, you would see the spectacle. It would be a hooded horse skull, and it'd be decked out in ribbons and bells and baubles and things.
Well, there's a lot of Celtic. There's a lot of Celtic lore about horses.
Oh yeah, when you get into Stelky and stuff like that.
Yes.
So, I mean, that kind of makes sense to the area. I mean, because of that.
Yep, that's true.
And what's interesting, I think, about Mari Lloyd is it's a pre-Christian practice. So even though it's associated with Christmas now, hasn't always been. So they would, parade Mari Lloyd through for other holidays, such as Halloween or even May Day. And the exact origins, they're a little murky. But they do know that the image of a white horse has been very powerful symbol in the UK for at least 3,000 years. So I thought it was pretty interesting.
Rhiannon was the horse goddess of Welsh mythology.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's a lot of horse things in that area. So
I
Well,
always
like-
have a funny story about that. So my family, a large portion of my family is Welsh. And so I was trying to tell my son one day, and he was about 9 or 10 at the time. He was only half listening to me. And I was like, we're from Wales, right? And he was like, Wales? I thought we were from monkeys. I was like, dude, seriously? He's 24 and I still hold it over his head.
I've got a lot of really bad jokes along those lines.
Oh, man.
On here.
I'll never forget that, though. And he was just like, you're never going to let me live that down, are you? Nope, I will not.
It's your job as his mother to remind him at least annually.
Oh, I do. I tell everybody. He hates it.
What's interesting about Yule and the Christmas time is that traditionally there really was a lot of ghost stories. There was, what was the one, A Christmas Carol that comes from that time period and everything, so there was a lot of creepy things that really came around at that time because you're looking at the darkest time of the year, and
yesterday was the longest night of the year.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's funny because it's like we took all of the creepy stuff and decided we're going to put that over in Halloween, and we'll just let Christmas be this, all we're going to keep is the joyous side of it. And it's almost like we're starting to pull the traditions back over into Christmas where they belong.
I would agree with that. I mean, and it really wasn't that long ago. I mean, look at the song, The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. You've got the scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. It's incorporated into that. And I don't know what year that's from, but
that's right.
Probably the 40s, maybe.
We can look it up. We've got the internet and ADD.
That's true. Go for it, Mark.
The most wonderful time of the year.
And I think, I don't know how much of it would go along with like electricity becoming a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, the dark wasn't quite the force to be pushed away with just candles that it is now, because our world is very well lit now compared to what it was just 100 years ago,
and we've got our heat. We're doing our heat with gas and electric, and it used to be coal.
Written in 1963.
Really? I thought it was older than that. Huh?
No, that's when the song was written.
Wow.
But I mean,
that's interesting.
It was probably written by somebody who was, of course, much older.
Parents or grandparents had told them these stories. So that checks. That checks.
That works.
Interesting. Oh. Fun factoid to get stuck in my brain now. Yay.
There you go.
I know, right?
It's always the little stuff that sticks too, It's not the important things. I never know, where's my keys?
I like to tell people I am the most useless or the largest repository of useless information.
You and me both, Mark.
That's why we like podcasting so much.
Yeah. My wife will tell me all the time, she's like, you know a lot about useless things. I'm like, thanks. I appreciate that.
And this is why you should move over here. We could just sit around down here at the local restaurant and drink our coffee and talk about useless things all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what we can do.
That's so funny. I love it.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, I appreciate you coming on here. We had a ball, and I'm going to have you back for the big show that we're going to do whenever we start talking about these same kind of things where these critters are running off with our kids.
Yeah, get me a date on that, and I'll do some proper research.
That's okay. I've got to do some proper research myself. So I'm just barely started going down the rabbit hole, and I know it goes a whole lot deeper than where
those rabbit holes get deep, and they interconnect someplace and go everywhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that a lot of this, like with the Yule lads and everything, is going to link in with ideas like the black-eyed children. is going to link in with the sounds of babies crying in the woods, the sound of children laughing in the woods, changelings, abductions of children, abductions of people. So I mean, it's going to be a pretty big show. So
Nice.
I think we'll have a whole
That's
lot
exciting.
of fun with that. So
I'm looking forward to it.
I wish both of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll make 2025 even bigger and better than we did 2024, and we'll have a whole lot of fun. So both of you, I wish you a good night. Hang around for just a minute. Let me close this puppy out.
Sounds good. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a whole bunch for tuning in for this special episode of Monsters the Podcast. We wish all of you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and don't forget, lock your doors, lock your windows, check in the closet, check under the bed, because monsters are real, and you never know when they're going to be back. Good night, everybody.